Okay, let's call to order this October 18th, 2021 regular council meeting to order. So if you could turn off any devices that you have or set them to vibrate and stand for the pledge. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Quick prayer. Precious Lord to God, we do honor you and glorify you and give you all the credit for everything that we do here tonight. Dear God, we just pray for your wisdom, your direction, your guidance. We do pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Barriak.
Here.
Zimmerman.
Here.
Splitzer.
Present.
Granchi.
Here. All right. Special presentations, there's none that I know of. Okay.
Smart meters, the one-on-ones on the agenda.
Yeah, that's under public comments.
Sorry.
Well, that's okay. Okay, public comments, and this is limited to agenda items. Give your name, your address in 3 minutes unless previously requested, and we have two individuals there that have the additional time. And the first one is Jim Luana Wasu, if that's how you say the name.
Okay, Jim Luana on 210 East Liberty Street. Smart meters. Want to talk about those a little bit. What brought us here? Well, the prior city manager proposed this idea, and he brought the legislation drawn up with scary language saying that our meters were so decrepit that they were a danger to the health and welfare of our citizens. Then came the referendums, the court hearings, the Board of Election hearings, the Supreme Court hearings. All during this time, he and council not knowing the outcome, the city manager signed the contracts and purchased said meters, not knowing what the outcome of any of this would be. Our department heads, whom I respect but can disagree with, say all meters are worn out. That I do not agree with. Some may be worn out, but not all of them. So where are we now? Well, postcards were mailed out by the previous administration citing Ordinance 2010-15, giving the city manager the right to set the rates. That ordinance was from a previous occurrence, Ordinance 2010-15, I believe it was, giving the city manager the right to set rates for water rates. It was a one-time thing. So the opt-out rates were set at $29 a month. No other costs were mentioned anywhere on that original opt-out form. None. $29 was the opt-out. I believe what I read, Kathy sent me the minutes, I believe what I read from caucus meeting minutes was that only 25 people had opted out of the program so far. Now I see that we are here talking about a new opt-out and only $5 per month charge. But the people who opt out have to purchase their dumb meters, something to the cost of $350. Are you kidding me? And if I opt out, why can't I just take a photo of my meter readings and submit it to the billing office by a certain day without any charge? Let's look at the smart meters and how we got there. Anyone sitting on council up there know what attachment 3 of the Gardner contract buys us? Ms. City Manager, do you know what it buys us? It buys us replacement lights and HVAC units for all of our buildings, all of our offices, all of our storage closets, all of our outside lights. Some of those lights are going to be put in the old municipal building in offices that we no longer use. And I don't recall seeing any lights, if I remember correctly, on the original bid that were for this building. Folks, you know what? We look like a bunch of idiots running around in circles. We're buying stuff that we can't afford, installing things that we don't need, and we're darn nearly broke. And the return on these meters, look it up, proposed return on these meters after 15 years is $491,000, although we spent $3.1 million to get them. Cuyahoga Falls won a judgment against Johnson Controls, and included in that judgment was Aclara and 2 other companies over the smart meter project that they had. That lawsuit settled for over $3 million. What about you and me? You know what? We own the electric, the water, and the sewer. We own the utilities. So we're facing increased rates. Water was just raised. The sewer has to be raised very soon, as we were told at the last meeting, or we're going to default on a debt payment. What benefit are we, me, you, I, any of us, getting from the ownership of our utilities? Usually when you own something, you benefit from it. I own a car, I get to drive it. I own a house, I get to live in it. During the past few years, previous council has annexed land clear to the center of the world. That's great. But remember, that cost us every month a 40% upcharge on those people's water bills. We don't get that anymore. 40% their water bill gone. They agreed to sell our electric to Venture Plastics for 1% over cost. Venture Plastics just now is starting to pay 1/5 of 1% of our city income taxes. You and I all pay 1%. 4 more years before they will leap to the full 1%. Not to mention the loss of the 40% of upcharge on their utilities, including electric, which I'm sure is huge. The county is buying our water at a bulk meter head and pumping it into Braceville, Southington, and clear up to West Farmington. Those county customers, I guarantee you, they're paying less per gallon of water than you and I are. That's ridiculous. I'm urging council tonight to take a serious look at putting the brakes on this program immediately. The owners of the utilities, you, me, I, us, all of us, we own the utilities. We are tapped out, folks. I have talked to business owners who say very much more, and they're closing the doors. Very much more for me, and I'm gonna have to move. My city utility bill last month was $346 for 3 people who live on 1 floor of a house. That is ridiculous. If our friends and our neighbors get a few kilowatts of electricity or a few gallons of water for free, I really don't care. Because you know what? We're giving it away to people who don't even live in our city. But yet we'll charge people 5 feet across the township line 40% more for it when we're giving it to West Farmington for less than what we're paying. Think about it when you're making your decision tonight.
Okay, Richard Curlin.
Good evening, everyone. Rick Curlin, 611 North Canal. I just briefly want to go over a list of information that I received, public information, regarding some finance situations. And I'd like to bring that to light. I wasn't aware of a lot of it. First, I refer to in January of 2021, when the committees and boards, commissions were formed. Mr. Zimmerman was added to all the financial situations. along with, of course, our law director, Mr. Lynch, and some past city councilmen. And that was in January. To review about the difference between boards and committees. All committees that the councilmen are on are required to give a report to city council. It's a little different with the boards. The financial boards are required to give information as to what they are doing. The big difference with the financial boards is that they probably have something that is very, very important, more so than anything under their duties. And I'll just briefly mention that. They are required by law to be a fiduciary and to have that responsibility. And I quote, "The fiduciary must knowingly accept and trust and confidence all the monies of whatever they are in charge of." And our board is in charge of all the money. All our money that is in our savings, our general fund. So this is required by law from the board. They are to give meeting or not give reports to city council as to what they are attempting to do. Keep in mind, fiduciary is very important. You're responsible for all the money that the city has. Under a fiduciary responsibility, you're required to treat that money in the best way you can possibly do. Now, the first meeting of the Treasury Investment Board, I will bring some of these to your attention. These are all the minutes. $250,000 was taken from the Treasury Investment Board, and that was 2nd of February. $250,000. They wanted to pay that back. As you remember, Mr. Zimmerman, you were at that meeting, obviously. They wanted to pay that back from money they were hoping to get from the auditor. I'm curious, did you ever get that $250,000 from the auditor? I wonder. I never did get an answer. The other thing that happened was that a motion was made and seconded by Mr. Zimmerman and approved by everyone on the board to take $150,000 from the Treasury Investment Board until the bonds that were expected to come from the borrowing that was made in relationship to the work at on the, I call it the fortress, not any longer, thank goodness, but they were hoping to get those bonds. I'm safe in assuming that, Mr. Zimmerman. I'm sure Mr. Fritz would say the same thing, because that's what it says right here. And we never got the bonds, as far as I'm sure. I don't know that we ever got them. Now, if we didn't get the bonds, why would you be taking $150,000 out of the fund? Just on a guess that we would have them. And that was in February. The next meeting was in March of the Treasury Investment Board. Another $150,000 was used as a pledge collateral to Huntington Bank for the bonds that we never got for the new City Hall renovation project again. Another $150,000. Now here it is, right in the minutes, by the way, if you want to see this. We never got the bonds. Did we pay that back? How did we pay that back? Mr. Zimmerman, you're on this board. You probably could answer that. I would hope someone would, I'm asking you the question, but I hope at some time you would answer that. There was another motion made that the venture visionary partners to move $250,000 out of the money market account and to move these funds to the Huntington main checking account effective March 4th. That's just another $250,000. The other that comes to light, and again, please consider what I'm saying. They had a fiduciary responsibility to make just decisions and appropriate decisions. This is nothing that is imaginary. That's what it says in our charter. That's what it says in the law. It would be, and a good example of this would be if you go to your bank and your bank says, we're going to invest this for you and we're going to guarantee your money. I guess our money wasn't guaranteed. But if we've made mistakes, at least make the mistakes, say you made the mistakes, and try to get the money back somehow. Lastly, the most important, I think, meeting of the Treasury Board was on 5/5 of 2021. That was in May. Some of the interesting thoughts were that Mr. Lynch, our previous city manager, had responded in saying that there was a payment due AMI for the smart meters, another payment for AMI, just something we owed them, not for the smart meters, that we owed them. So it was decided that this time, and I wonder who made that motion and seconded and voted yes, was Mr. Zimmerman and Mr. Fritz, that we take out $500,000, $500,000 that we would take out of the fund. And the reason that was given that we should do this, Mr. Lynch said, coming in June, no later than that, we would expect to have $900,000 from our ARP funds. Now, what was common knowledge during this time was there was not going to be any $900,000. The townships were going to get money. Our end of that would have been $450,000. The other thing that happens is that of that $450,000, we only get half this year. So we've taken out $500,000 based on the investment board's decision to take it out, put it in the general fund, based on getting back $900,000. We only got back $250,000, if that. Where's the rest? How do we pay it back? We can't pay it back, just make it out of the clear blue sky. You were on that board, Mr. Zimmerman. It was your decision to borrow that $500,000 based on something that didn't happen, that was not going to happen, that has not happened. We will not be getting any more ARP funds until next year. We'll get another $250,000. Every time the two gentlemen that are left, our law director and Mr. Zimmerman, voted yes to all these. It's facts. It's right here. Their fiduciary responsibility was not met. The mistakes were made with other people's money. How do we get it back? We spent it in the general fund. I guess we don't know how, but where? But where do we get the money back? We can't keep taking it out of what you have in the past, Mr. Zimmerman, and that is the savings all the time. You can't do it. But that's what's been done, and if you'd like to see it, I can give you a copy. Our clerk did an admirable job, very good job on filling out the request. It's disappointing. You didn't hold up your end. You didn't do what it says in the charter. You did not act as a fiduciary agent. We have no way of paying all that back. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else that would like 3 minutes to give your name and your address?
Julie Lemon, 2750 East River Road. On Ordinance 2021-22, if someone can explain the exemptions, Part A, maybe in a little bit more detail. I kind of felt like it was a little bit vague, but maybe I was missing something on that. And then also, I wanted to talk about number 6 under new business, the motion to orally sanction Mr. Zimmerman. It's no secret that the city's at odds, but I wanted to share something I found on Facebook that Mr. Zimmerman himself penned or typed from the 444 Common Sense Unzipped. It's no secret that there's a YouTube video going around about supposed meetings or illegal meetings. Mr. Zimmerman himself had this to say: something to think about. I put in a public records request for information regarding these meetings in the video. There is no list of any kind of the committee meetings that were scheduled that day. There is no record of where or when these meetings were published. There is no record of who called or scheduled these meetings. There is no agenda for any of these meetings. There are no minutes for any of these committee meetings. Because there are no minutes, there is no record of who attended each meeting. The only record of any kind regarding these committee meetings is this video. And it happens to be the video where you see Mr. Barriak walking in the door, sir. This is what was put on YouTube. You're up to be orally sanctioned. And I want to remind you that as of April 19th, 2021, when Mr. Fritz was excused from the meeting by the mayor, and you and fellow council members had left, and the only 3 left was the mayor and Councilman Barriak and Councilwoman Spletzer, they tried to continue to do the business for the people of this town. Unfortunately, there was no quorum. Again, on May 3rd, business could not be conducted because you and other council members did not show up, and Mr. Barriak did, and Councilwoman Spletzer did, and the mayor did. But again, no business could be conducted because there was no quorum. The mayor and 2 council people do not constitute a quorum. Our law director has said so himself. So not only have you held up business, you have spread falsification to the people who want to read this. You need to do your ward justice and actually spread the truth and not your own disdain for your fellow council members. It's an injustice to the community. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Anna EB, 50 West 9th Street, Newton Falls. My question is on number 2, the ordinance 2021-22. Is requiring registration the same as you're going to charge them a fee? Of contractors operating that come from outside the city? Well, I really believe, as a citizen at this point, until we get to be a real socialist or communist country, that I should have a choice on who I want to come in here. And if you're going to charge a fee to let outside contractors come in and do work at my house, they're going to put it on me. They're not going to pay that fee. I'll end up paying it. So I do not believe that that should be done. And how are you going to control somebody come into my house to do something? You're going to have spies around? Do I have to feel like I'm being spied on? Because I had a new air conditioner put in my home by Carrier, and they're going to come in and check it for me, and you're going to charge them, if you are going to charge them, or make them register, for what? Register to who? I don't believe in this ordinance at all. It'll put a monopoly for people in this town for what they do. I know Mr. Barriak has his tree service, and he does fine work. I know Phillips Heating and Cooling. I'm not pleased with their work. That's why I had Carrier come in. I just feel that this town needs to invite people in and not make them pay anything or sign up to come into town to do work for people. I know I talked with Mr. Stimpert last week, and he said he can't find a contractor for the concrete. You don't have contractors within Newton Falls that everybody needs. You just don't have them here. And they should not have to, I mean, you're just going to make it so we can't get anybody here. And that's my opinion.
John Richards, 212 Albert Street. And I'd like to talk about another aspect of having contractors register. I don't know about the fees or what they have in mind or anything. But a lot of years ago, when my dad was ill, he was having some work done on a porch. He was having it enclosed, and I contracted with someone out of the Niles and Middle Ridge area. And when that happened, my dad was ended up in the hospital, and he was dying. And when I saw him at the hospital, Dad said, "I want you to take care of this for me." He said, I don't want to leave it to your mom to do, but I want you to meet this gentleman and pay him the full amount for the job. Now, my dad had paid a down payment. And so I did that. I just tell you how long ago. It was Eddie's Haven. I met him uptown. I met the gentleman and his son, and I paid them the money to complete the job. And it was several weeks later, my dad died. And then in a time after that, I tried to contact these people. I had a phone number, and I was never able to contact them. And I don't know if this kind of system would help or not, but at least if we had a registry of who was working in town, so that if somebody runs out on you, then you stand a chance of tracking them down. And by the time I located where these people lived, they had left. And I mean, things like that happen. And I think it happens with the elderly. Sometimes people will start a job and they don't do it correctly, or they don't finish it. So I don't know the answer on fees. I don't think they should be outrageous. But I like the idea of somebody coming in town to work, that we know who they are, so that we can track them down if they don't do the job that they say they will do. Thank you.
Mark Stimper, 1023 Page Court. I'm here to speak about the ordinance regarding contractor registration as a zoning inspector. I'm not going to be inspecting anything, but the reason for this ordinance is exactly what John had to put up with. When you have these fly-by-night contractors come in and say, "Give me half down now, I'll send all my people over tomorrow to get this job done," and you never see them again. That's what I want to protect this town from. I want contractors in here that are going to be signing up. Yes, they have to pay $100, but that's for the entire year. That's for the entire year. And the reason for this is so that we know that they're a legitimate company
And what happens is they get to, correct me if I'm wrong, Pam, but you've been in the insurance industry a little bit longer. They will name us as lost payee on their insurance company. So when people have problems, they can go to the insurance company and they can file the claim and they will be paid. And no, this isn't for Barriak. You guys already passed something that says, as a contractor, if you're on council, you have to wait 2 years to do business in Newton Falls. So this has nothing to do with John. This has everything to do with the fly-by-night companies that come in here and take advantage of not only our citizens, but they prey on the elderly. That's what I don't want to see happen. I've seen it happen too many times, and I want to prevent it. And that's what this is going to prevent. And if it means you paying $100 more in your job, I doubt it if that's the only job they're going to have is one job in Newton Falls. And if they charge you $100 more, then you should get another contractor. Thank you.
Tim Stinson, 253 Arlington. I wasn't even going to speak on this one, but I'll keep going now. I agree with both of you. There's points to both of your sides. It will definitely come back on the homeowner, no doubt about it. A contractor's not going to eat that cost. There needs to be some ownership on the owner to verify the contractors, if you will. And I understand what you just said and what you said also. There are people that get taken, but maybe the city can have a list of approved contractors, or something that like Angie's list, but for the city, that would help prevent some of that stuff without causing a fee. It shouldn't necessarily be on the homeowners. I think it makes all the sense in the world for businesses to have that stuff, because you have the public coming in there and operating things. I don't know where I feel as far as a fee. It's definitely going to get passed on to everyone. What I did want to talk about was Ordinance 2021-19. Does any of you up there know what that cost is actually going to be? What the percentage is right now currently? Okay. You do? All right, so 1 out of 4.
What is it, 2021-19?
Yes.
It's the COLA?
Yeah, the cost of living.
Well, it's tabled until next year.
I know, but does anyone know what it is currently? That's my question. So I'm all for giving raises. I'm not against this. It's very reasonable right now. But I would like to see something amended in there that, who knows what's going to happen next year. We're not in a good situation right now financially. There needs to be some kind of wording in this that says we will try to give you guys these cost of living adjustments, but there's no guarantee. There needs to be some kind of amendment, depending on how the city's doing financially. My company's not doing strong financially. Guess what? I'm not getting a raise. It's not a guaranteed thing, and that's just the facts of life. We're in bad shape right now, and again, I'm all for it, but don't think we should be doing that. And then the second thing that I wanted to talk about was Ordinance 2021-21, the sidewalk thing. I understand the purpose of it, but after reading the actual ordinance and stuff on here, you guys need to read that. There's some wording and there's some things for concern, I think, overall. Not today, but long term, it might not be a good thing. With the people that's in this room, sure, it would be probably just fine, but nobody knows what's going to happen later, and later is what I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about right now, but there are some things in that ordinance that I'm not concerned, or I'm very concerned about, and there's some things in there that I don't understand fully either. So if I don't understand it, You know, again, don't vote on something that you guys don't fully understand. And then the water thing. Again, I said it at the meeting last time, and he said it. Don't go by the rates that are on there. Charge them people that are buying our water and our utilities double, triple. They're selling it for quadruple what we're getting. We need to get ours. So I know there's a percentage in here. It's probably not high enough. I think it's 16% over 9,000 gallons or something. It's $1. Make it 50%. That's how we're going to recoup some of our money that we're bad, or that we need bad. So highly look at that. Quadruple it. Make it for a year. They're not going to say no. They have to come to us. We are in charge. So thank you.
Mr. Stinson, is the number you're looking for 5.9?
No.
No?
That is all. That's what I thought it was at first, but it is not 5.9.
It is 1.3.
It is 1.4.
1.4?
It was 1.3 at this time.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, if we have nobody else for public comments, we'll move into the reports. Okay. Start off with Mr. Zimmerman in Ward 1.
I was going to be attending a planning and zoning board meeting just last week, but the meeting ended up being canceled. Fire board meeting is tomorrow night. And I've been asked to be a part of a brainstorming session in regards to a dog park trying to come here into town. It's a private dog park, kind of like a club, pay to be a member of this dog park. So I was just asked to be a part of a brainstorming session. Coming up, that's not this week, it'll be next week. And that's all that I have.
Okay, Mr. Barriak, you have anything for Ward 2?
Excuse me. I attended the economic development meeting pursuant to the Dunkin' Donut coming to Newton Falls. All I'd like to say to the people right now, negotiations are moving. We're in negotiation, and that's all I know right now, preliminary negotiation, and we're going to be on it like a dog on a bone. So I can't tell you any more about it now, because we don't know ourselves until we get some facts and figures. Thank you.
Just make sure to negotiate that they have the jelly donuts with the frosting and not just the powder, okay? All right, Ms. Blitzer, if you have anything for Ward 3?
Yes, I do. This past Saturday, I went over to the Everett Great House Park, and I checked in on the progress that the Girl Scout, Jocelyn Showers, is making, and she's really doing an outstanding job. I look forward to writing a resolution for her, because this girl has taken on a big project, and it's really looking nice. And there will be some additional issues that Park and Recs will have to follow up with her to take care of. I also received a few phone calls this week, and a couple of them, I made some notes, and I want to address the specific issues that they had to discuss with me. One of them is that the channel 1023 for Spectrum is not broadcasting our council meetings. And I just found out from tonight, Mr. Tom Gregory said that there's something that he's going to need to do to get that taken care of and resolved. Somebody also wanted to discuss the smart meters. And of course, there were calls about the so-called missing $1.5 million. One of my constituents wanted me to answer, what are we doing about the contracts that were put in place when Mr. Waddell was sitting in my seat? So obviously some of these, and somebody wants Oak Knoll paved over there by Huntington Bank. Obviously these are some things that I will have to work on, and those kind of things will take some time. But one of the things that I do want to emphasize is that since October 6th, I have been going through a 140-page report called an expense audit trail. And I spent a tremendous amount of time looking at all the things and comparing it to our budget. And I probably spent way too much time on it because when we got the memo from Mr. Housley on Friday, he pretty much summed up what I was discovering as I was going through everything in front of me. So I would like to read for the public Mr. Housley's memo to us because I think they deserve to hear it. Today, October 15th, we close the month of September. It's good to be currently entering October cycle activity in October. This is the first month that I know what our cash position is while we're entering the transactions. For the months June through September, you should have received all reports digitally via email. Bank report, statement of cash, revenue, and expenditure. Since the audit trail report gives the detail for the entire year, these are included with your September reports only. The bank wire activity will be booked this month. As discussed previously, there are many accounts that are over budgeted. I've sent the department heads the September expenditure report and detailed audit trail report and asked them to evaluate for missed postings and to provide an explanation for the accounts over budget. Currently, the funds 407 City Hall Broad Street and 711 Fire Township Fuel have spent more than their available resources, which is not legal, and I'm currently evaluating these. The General Fund 100 cash balance of approximately $172,000 is alarming because around September 27th, we received 2 payments from the Ohio Department of Development totaling $180,582 related to the gas station cleanup at the intersection of State Route 5 and 534. The contractor has not billed us yet. Were it not for these 2 payments, the general fund would have overspent its available resources too. To compound the general fund's liquidity problems, the auditors have finalized the audit report and are requesting the general fund return the illegal transfer of $462,000 it received during April of 2020, and it does not have the cash available to return the transfer. Fortunately, we did receive $234,000 in ARPA grant monies, which is Fund 233, which after I do some calculations, we may be able to reclassify some of the general fund's costs to. To summarize, this is what the cash position of the general fund would look like if the activity was posted. And he did give us a little chart, and it's too difficult to explain to you, but I'm just telling you it would have had a negative cash balance of $240,281. Additionally, the 2021 street paving contract has billed the city approximately $208,000. That's not enough cash in the general fund or street fund to pay the bill. This whole cycle seems to have begun in April 2020 with the illegal transfer from the electric fund 503 to the general fund, materially misrepresenting cash in the general fund. Then, in November 2020, the general fund paid $250,000 in cash for 612 West Broad Street, followed by unplanned legal costs early in 2021, approximately $200,000. To conclude, the city will need to seek some type of operating loan to pay its current obligations created for the spending that began in 2020 for City Hall and for the 2021 unplanned legal costs. I've contacted Cecina and Associates LLC, which are municipal financial advisors, to assist us with this process. Now, I know you all need a minute to pick your jaws up off of the floor. There were a couple things that, Mr. Curlin, when you were speaking, I just wanted to clarify because, let me also tell my fellow council members, I gave you the minutes from the September 15th TIB meeting. On those minutes, you will see some of my notes And there is also a correction that Kathy will have to make before we approve them at the next TIB meeting. But you have received a written version, and Mr. Granchi, yours are still up there on that shelf.
Oh.
Yeah, those are from me. The one thing that I did want to make sure was clarified, that when the May transfer was done, the minutes say that Musson made a motion seconded by Lynch to transfer $500,000. That was the May meeting. And the February meeting was held February 17th. The $250,000 was moved on February 26th, and that's what I reported to you guys at the last meeting. And the March meeting was actually held on March 3rd, but the second $250,000 was moved on March 4th. And to my knowledge, there has only been $150,000 moved one time. And that was for the purpose of securing the bonds. So there's only been one transfer of $150,000. There's been two transfers of $250,000, and then the big one was the $500,000 that was done in May. And with that, I think I'm done.
Mr. Granchi, do you have anything for Ward 4?
Yeah, I do. As usual, I've been fielding calls from constituents. I haven't been to any meetings. I was also asked to attend the brainstorming session for the dog park with Mr. Zimmerman and members of the zoning board. I've also been working with Heritage Accord for the community center with an upcoming event, and I was able to secure a sizable donation to them that will be announced later this month. And that's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fritz, do you have anything as the law director?
No, sir, do not.
Okay, does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns for the law director? Okay, if not, Ms. Purdy, do you have anything as the city manager report?
Thanks. No, I don't. You all have a copy of my report. I'm open for questions if anybody has any questions.
Okay, questions, comments, concerns for the city manager?
If I may be recognized.
Mr. Barriak, you have the floor.
Mrs. Pretty, if we need to have Bill George come back down here, I'd like you to do the best you can, and if you can't right now, that's okay. And then Mr. Bill George, I want to know, you know, this smart meter thing wasn't done properly. We tried to recall it, it was passed under emergency. I voted against it. But here's the position that I'd like to find out, at least before I go anywhere. By us trying to drop this program now, when it's so far along, I know there was enough fat on that hog that we would, but will we be losing out? I may not like to take a dose of castor oil, but I might have to cure me. In other words, to make everything not go downhill more than what it is. What, could I ask if you would give an opinion right now, or should we maybe think about tabling this until we all get on board? And because you're going to explain it tonight, I understand.
I would think to have Bill back in would probably be a good idea.
And with the sidewalk ordinance, I think I need to know more about it. I don't know what my fellow colleagues are, but to me, it wasn't on what we're supposed to pass is not clear to me. You know, and I don't know if it's all clear to my rest of my council people, but I think we need to maybe table that too until we can bring back something so the public doesn't think that.
Well, what I think would be best is we did the caucus last time.
Yes, I know
I think that would be a good idea maybe to do that again with both of those for the next meeting.
I don't think the people are going to understand what I saw again on the what the questions that you had. Are they going to have to start over again? Are they going to make them redo it? All that. I hope I could answer some of those questions tonight, but right now, I'm leaving it up to you.
Okay. I can check into that with Bill and Mark to see if we can start the caucus before the next meeting.
I'm sorry I couldn't ask the law director a question. Mayor, would I be able to answer? Is that out of order?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Fritz, can I put a motion on the floor to ask Councilman Zimmerman to resign? This is not a little thing. This is a big, and there's a thing to the community. And as this goes forward, I think the people are going to be more shocked.
To answer your original question, motions for resignation would go probably at the time you asked for a change tonight's agenda. It wouldn't be part of now. Otherwise, you'd have to put it on the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything for the city manager?
Yes, sir. Ms. Pretty, we've been hearing how bad our financial situation is. From what I've heard, Sean, speaking with Sean Housley, he's been doing great work so far. Can you please tell everyone what we are paying him for his role here?
Sure, $2,800 a week.
$2,800 a week.
Mm-hmm.
What's that
Yes.
come out to per month? It's $11,200 per month. Assuming a 40-hour work week, that comes out to $70 per hour. And if you multiply that by 2,080 hours, which is a standard work year, that comes out to $145,600 for a year of work.
He's not going to be here a year. He's going to be here 2 months.
I just heard talk of possibly extending him for another 90 days. Is there any truth to that?
Not 90 days, no.
Okay, but
1
about extending
month.
him any further.
1 month. He's here for 8 weeks.
So we're looking at $145,600. Do you know what Silver Lake is paying him?
Comparable to that number, yes.
Not even close.
Well, that's what he
Silver
told me.
Lake is paying him, as for Silver Lake, he is a combination, treasurer and clerk. I put in a public request, information request with Silver Lake. They are paying him $41.69 an hour for the combined position. That's as with a temporary merit raise that he just had. That comes out to $1,667.60 per week. So compare the numbers. They are paying him $1,667.60 per week. You are paying him $2,800 per week. And we are assuming that he is here for 40 hours. According to his work agreement, it says part-time, not full-time, part-time.
I understand your comments, Mr. Zimmerman, but to find anybody to come in here to handle the situation we were in, we were not getting anyone. Mr. Housley volunteered his time to come in here, 6 hours or 7 hours. He works weekends. He's actually putting in probably more than the time, maybe 60 hours a week just on our stuff alone. And like I said, it's for a very limited amount of time. And in talking with the law director and other people, we were not paying Ms. Musson at that point. You're not paying me. So there's more than enough to cover his fee for the 60 days.
But how come we've been hearing that everyone else has to make cuts?
I'm sorry?
We've been hearing that other departments have to make cuts.
Well, those department cuts are based on just what their expenditures have been. That has nothing to do with what's happening with the financial situation of the city.
But $70 per hour, $145,600 would come out to for a year.
Do you want the job, Mr.
as a second
Zimmerman?
person.
Do you want the job?
Oh, no,
Just
no
look at the
more of
numbers.
that.
That's all.
It's fine if you want to take the job and get us out of the financial situation we're in. There, to have somebody deal with state auditors and handle all the complaints and everything else that individual has handled is beyond what I would expect. To me, he has been well worth the money that has been spent for this city.
Okay. Anybody else have anything for the city manager? Ms. Spetzer or Mr. Granchi?
No, thank you.
Okay, I'll move on to the mayor's report. I don't have anything real significant to report. I went to a couple of events. I tried to spend time with different individuals outside our community to see what helps that we can get here. I went to a really good event at Robbie Lee's the other day, a good breakfast for an individual running for governor, Joe Blystone. Went to a panel discussion for individuals running for Senate. And as I said, I try to go to things like this because, as my grandma used to always say, the squeaky wheel gets oiled first. And as much as I can put Newton Falls in their ears, I think is a benefit. Also went the other night, and a lot of you guys know our own police officer, John Barco. You know, he's running for Trumbull County Sheriff, just to let you know that. And I went to a dinner speaking engagement. He did really, really well, and I think we'd be proud to have him as our sheriff. And I sat in on a meeting with 2 detectives for BCI, obviously to discuss a lot of the situations that you're hearing bits and pieces of, to get outside individuals' help and suggestions and resources. Had a lot of discussion with different individuals in the community, thoughts, concerns. I try to be as transparent as possible and try to take suggestions, and answer any questions that I can. And there's a lot of alarming stuff here, and I'm thankful for the individual that has come in and has kind of given some care to our finances. I mean, I got to see all the red negative marks on our budget. It really, really looks bad. I mean, Swiss cheese doesn't even give it merit, but this individual is pulling it back together, and without him, we'd be hosed. I'm going to tell you what, we would be hosed. But the fact of the matter is, Miss Purdy is working hard. She's using a lot of common sense and wisdom and turning over every rock possible, and we're going to right the ship, I'll guarantee you that. So right now, as frustrating as it is, it's very frustrating. I mean, if I was a man that cusses, I'm going to tell you what, I'd be letting him out right now, especially after what Ms. Blitzer reported. But as irritating as that is, I'm a resident here. I have children that are residents here. Grandchildren, as alarming and troublesome it is for me as well as it is them, I promise you we will get this fixed. And that's all I have. Do we have any changes to tonight's agenda? Okay.
That's where he said you're supposed to do it.
Okay. Mr. Barriak, did you want to add anything to it or no?
I'd like to make a motion. I know the next meeting, but I'd like to make a motion now that I ask Mr. Zimmerman to resign.
Okay.
This isn't spitting on the ground. This isn't something this affects the fiduciary responsibility of this community. And we've been kept in the dark.
Okay.
We're in a real pickle now.
Mr. Mayor, can we just have the motion for
Yeah, I was
for now?
just going to say, you're just making the motion right now, Mr. Barriak, and we have to see.
Sorry.
That's okay. We have to see if we have a second to make the motion, and then we have discussion and a roll call to see if it's added to the agenda. Okay, so do we have a second to add it to the agenda? Okay, if there's no second, then I'm not able to put it on. Approval of previous minutes, October 4th, 2021 caucus. Do we have a motion to approve it?
Yes. So moved.
Okay, so Mr. Granchi, Ms. Blitzer.
I'd like to speak, please.
Okay.
I did notice that there are 2 changes that need to be made to that. The clerk has us going into the caucus session at 5 o'clock, but it says that we came out at 7:57. So I believe the time that we finished up caucus was 5:57 because the very next meeting rolled right into us at 6 o'clock. And then one thing she also missed was that Mr. Granchi's vote didn't get recorded. It says, everybody got the aye, but Granchi didn't get an aye, but it did pass 5-0. So 2 small little changes on that one.
Okay, anybody else before we go ahead and call for the roll for the caucus? Okay, if not, whenever I'll wait for, whenever Mrs. King is ready, you can call for it.
Zimmerman,
Yes.
Spletzer,
Wait, are we voting on them as,
Individually.
are they going to be amended?
They're
Do
just
I need to
typos.
motion for them to be amended?
My suggestion is both those matters that you mentioned are typographical errors and can be changed by the clerk by your oral recommendation. If they are correct, then she'll make that change. So you're voting on the actual minutes themselves.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Spletzer,
Yes.
Granchi,
Yes.
Barriak,
Yes.
Okay. Caucus minutes passed. October 4th, 2021, regular meeting minutes. Do we have a motion?
I move.
Second.
I'd like to speak, please.
Okay, you have the floor.
Thank you. Now, this one was 16 pages long, and there are quite a few mistakes that need to be corrected. At the top of page 2, I would like you to begin by changing Julie Lemon's address to the correct house number. Currently, the one that's in front of us has 5 digits. I'm sure her house number only has 4 digits, so that is one simple change that needs to be made. However, moving down to the next section under reports, I clearly remember Mr. Zimmerman saying, "I have nothing to report." You didn't even include his name in the reports, you just skipped on and started off with Barriak. So I would like the minutes to reflect that Mr. Zimmerman was here and he clearly stated he had nothing to report. If you get down into the section of my report in the minutes, when I was giving the dates of those TIB meetings, I did not say any of those meetings were held on 9/26. It was February 26, so that should be a 2/26. And then, when I asked Mr. Fritz about the legal opinion, I did not say that they would like to have, that the Park and Rec Board would like to have the permits run through them. I was asking, they wanted to know if this is the way it was supposed to be done. And something else that needs cleaned up is that when I reported about what the baseball league did, I said that the baseball league paid $5,375 to put in 150 tons of dirt on 6 fields. Plus, $2,549 was spent on the fencing. Okay, I remember those specifically, and I feel that those need to be cleaned up. There are several other occasions throughout these 16 pages of minutes where there are words that are used that totally change the meaning of the sentence itself. For example, under the mayor's report, I'm sure when he attended the music in the park, he thanked the Commerce Association and those who provided. The word in the sentence as it is says proved food. On page 4, another word that appears in the pages as we were given them says that Zimmerman, this is on page 4, Zimmerman said 6 weeks. Mr. Lynch reigned. What is the status of the search? I'm sure that's not the word that should be there. I'm sure it should be the word resigned. In the paragraph under that, it says Spletzer stated TAT. I'm sure that word is supposed to be that. On page 8, I see where you've used the word his instead of the word this. Spletzer apologized and said she was writing notes and skipped down. She said she needed to discuss his. It's not his. I needed to discuss this. Also on page 8, Crop stated we have gone back and on the paper it says 4. I'm sure that is supposed to be 4th. On page 13, when it's talking about the DORA, it should be the word than. There are far more positives to having a DORA than negatives. And there are several more typos and edits that need to be done. If you'd like me to come in and go over it with you, I will. It's no sense in taking up all the time during the council meeting.
Okay, does anybody else have anything? Okay, whenever Mrs. King is ready, she could call for the roll.
Spitzer?
No.
Granchi?
Yes.
Barriak?
No.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yeah. Okay, October 11th, 2021, special meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Granchi.
I'll second. And I'd like to speak.
Okay, you have the floor.
Thank you. This one at the roll call, it says that Ward 4 is vacant. Mr. Granchi, are you here or are you vacant?
I'm here.
Okay, well, it needs to be changed on the minutes. On this one, it says Ward 4 is vacant, and it should be at-large vacant. That one's a quick, simple, easy fix, and so is on page 2. You need to add that the motion passed, 4-0. Those are two simple, quick fixes that could be addressed.
Okay, is that it?
Yes.
Okay, anybody else?
No, I was going to say the same thing about Ward 4 vacant. That was the only thing I had for that.
Okay. So whenever Mrs. King is ready, you can call for the roll.
Granchi?
Yes.
Barriak?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Spitzer?
Yes.
Okay, minutes are approved. Public hearings, none. Unfinished business, both items, ordinance 2021-13 is tabled until 11:15. And then the second one, ordinance 2021-19 is tabled until the first meeting of 2022. So that brings us to new business. And the first item is ordinance 2021-21. And if Mrs. King could read that.
An ordinance amending ordinance 2010-15, 2010-34, and 2017-13, establishing new rates for water and bulk water hauling on usage beginning January 1, 2022.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, Mr. Barriak, I think you sponsored it. Did you want to speak first on
Yeah,
that?
if I could, please. Ordinance 2021 deals with the the water increase. I have an exhibit here. Our rates for our citizens inside the village. And excuse me, let me backtrack 1 second. There was a $50,000 study done on this. It wasn't just picking numbers out of the air. Well, I'm thankful for Jeff Hawkins, because Jeff kept it down to, for the first 8,000 gallons you are paying now $5.01. The rates are going up to $5.20. That's 19 cents for the first 8,000. That's a 3.70. Now, I'm not going to go through all the rest of them, but here's where it is. Because I agree with whoever was up here to say that the outsiders should pay. Right now, we're going to go up 33.70% for the water haulers, and over 50,000 gallons, we're going up 33.80. We need the money, and I feel this was the most fair way, was to put the people like out in Farmington that are paying almost, well, we're really doubling. But Mayor, would I be allowed to call Jeff to say a couple words?
If we made a motion to waive the council rules. for a
I'll
moment.
make a motion just to waive council rules.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Ms. King wants to call for the roll, or
Barriak,
Yes.
Zimmerman,
Yes.
Splitzer,
Yes.
Franchi.
Yes.
council rules are waived. Okay, you can call.
Okay, since council rules are waived, I want to ask a question about the chart. The chart says in the middle column, for the 50,000 gallons for the water haulers, it says 10,00. Is it supposed to be $10 or I need that number, I need that, whatever it's supposed to be clarified on Exhibit A, please.
Mr. Barriak also, did you want to ask Mr. Hawkins something? Mr. Hawkins, would you mind?
Would you mind please coming to the podium?
Together.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Mr. Hawkins, I want to ask a couple quick questions. We've had no water rate increase since 2015. Is that true? Is that a true statement, sir?
That's correct.
Do you feel, and I'm not going to go browbeat you, do you feel that we're being equitable this time and not giving a store away? We're letting people pay their fair share.
Yes, I believe that's true, especially with this one. We did a lot of work on this one, hence the cost, because we did a lot of work to try to make everything fair. And the whole idea is to make sure that as the years go by, we're solvent, okay? We could have asked for a lot more and had a lot more money, but we felt that we could probably operate within these rate increases, you know, in a good manner. So, you know, all these, you know, percentages and stuff, they're not written in stone. They are recommendations from an engineer. So we can do with them what we want.
I want to ask you a question. I'm going to read right off the sheet. So the first 8,000 gallon for a homeowner in Newton Falls, in the village, a resident, is going from 501 to 520. The next 9,000 gallons, so we're up to using 17,000 gallons a month. That goes from $4.44, which is lower than the first 8, and it only goes to 518. So it does take a 16, I want the people to understand it's going to take a 16.50% increase.
If you do the math,
And
it's 10 bucks.
and the next 17,000 gallon are going to be 433. That's what they are now. We're going to 514. Compared to what we're getting in the outsiders, do you feel it was equitable, sir?
Yeah, and we looked at that too. We looked at how many people, how many customers use X amount of gallons, how many use the next X amount of gallons, and then, you know, for residentials, 17,000, there's not too many. You know what I mean? You got a leak, yeah, but, and then we tried to work it, we worked it a little bit different with outside, because there were, you know, wholesale considerations. We're wholesaling it out. So we had to work that consideration into those tiers. But again, we looked at outside residentials, township residentials, people live in township. Very, very few use over 8,000 gallons. So that's, you know, when we set those tiers, we looked at like, okay, where are the bulk of the people? Okay, and then where are fewer people, but people that use way more. So that was the formulation that we went. And I would also like to say that, yes, a person earlier talked about let's get ours and, you know, let's make our money. You really can't do that. If you really would go after somebody like that, they could go to the state, they could go to the EPA, they could go to other places and go, you know what, you guys are ripping us off. So this whole study was done by a set of, it's American Water Works Association standards. Those are standards across the whole United States. So by staying within these standards, we keep ourselves out of that possibility of somebody coming back after us for price gouging. So we figured what we have in these rates is going to be sufficient.
One more question. Weren't these rates supposed to begin the same as this? I don't want to bring the sewer into this. Weren't these rates supposed to begin in January? This water?
Of 21?
Yes.
The study was done in December. It was finished in December. And it wasn't brought to council until now.
Okay.
The study was done in December
Of 2020.
2020. Okay.
And this wasn't brought to council until now.
Okay.
Mayor, may I be recognized?
Sure.
Jeff, I just want to ask, is this a document you put together, or was this exhibit part of the?
That was part of the report.
So, but Tessa, if you do the math, it is $10. So.
Okay, so that's supposed to be a period, not a comma.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I thought this came right out of the document.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, does anybody else have anything else?
Yeah, just real quick, sir. Just like we heard from here from the audience, why not raise the water haulers 50, 60, 70%? Why only the 33.7%? Has there ever been talk that, or any word heard that they would just go somewhere else for water if it was too high?
Well, they will.
Oh, yes, I figured they would, but
They will.
have you heard this from any of our haulers?
We've
particular?
been the most reasonable,
Right.
bulk seller around here for 5 years. So, we could have actually went in and raised their rates outside of a rate study, but we just figured it'd be cleaner to go all the way. And those prices are very, very comparable to a lot of the, plants and stuff around here that are selling water. Fewer and fewer water plants have bulk water sales. Warren does, Ravenna just started, Salem quit, Alliance is half and half. So we didn't want to price ourselves out of the market, but then again, we wanted to capture what we deserve.
Thank you.
Mr. Hawkins, one of those big tanker trucks, how many gallons does that hold? I see a purple one go up and down 534 all the time. I'm sure you see it on a regular basis too. It's a purple cab and a really big, long tanker.
That's not one that comes to us. He could be hauling milk or something, but
That could be too.
when you're talking about one of those, it's 9,000 gallons.
So a semi-size truck with a tanker on it can only haul up to 9,000 at a time?
9,000 gallons. Yeah.
Full. And I'm sure a lot of the ones that you get coming could possibly be for like cisterns or swimming pools. They're hauling less than 9,000.
Yeah.
Would that be fair?
Yeah. We have probably three different haulers that have the large trailers, and they really only bring those out when they've got like a big pool to do, because they're very heavy and they're subject to very big fines because they're very, very heavy.
I'm sure those are called out when like somebody builds a brand new pool and
Right.
needs to fill it up from scratch.
Yeah. But-
Typical full top-ups or cisterns.
The average size of a truck coming in would be under 5,000 gallons. So a few of them are 5,000. We have a lot of smaller ones. We have, in the summer, guys come in the back of their pickup trucks with 100-gallon tanks and put some water in to, go do whatever they need to do. But
I have a question. How do you build them?
they come in and log their loads,
you know what? And at the end, we have sheets, and at the end of the month, I turn them into Andrea and Sue, they calculate, they bill them out.
Okay, so the guy that's got a 10,000 gallon water hauler truck, I'm sorry. You said the big ones only hold up to 9,000, so.
At one time.
At one time. So if he comes 10 times that day and gets 90,000 gallons worth of water, he would be billed at this $10
Is that
rate?
the lower rate?
I'm sorry?
There's two tiers on that. I'm not quite sure what the two tiers are.
I see over 50,000, it's $8.50.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the 50,000 and under would be $10.
Yes. Yeah, he would get it at $8.50. Because he's hauling more in one day than some of those people are hauling in a year. So.
If I might have the floor for one more, Mr.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Barriak.
Mayor. Did we not agree to, sir, to not even start the race till the next January of 2022?
That's when we would like to start it, yes.
That's when this will start. We're not gonna put, it's on there.
Yeah, it says it right in there.
Yeah, it's in there, but we're not reading it. I want it to come from your mouth.
Yeah.
We're not gonna do it till next January. We're gonna give the people.
Well, January 1st is, if, I don't know how many readings and the times in between, whether it would be ready for January, would it be? Okay. That's why we're talking about it. But, yeah, it's always pretty much cleaner from, just even go into budget stuff.
Right.
Okay, look, we know we're gonna have this, so.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
If nobody else has anything, no, okay. Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you.
And if we have somebody that wants to make a motion to return to regular council rules.
I'll make that motion.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and if
Zimmerman?
Mrs. King could-
Yes.
Spletzer?
Yes.
Franchi?
Yes.
Barriak?
Yes.
Okay, back to regular council, and if anybody else has any comments or discussion on this.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, you have the floor, Mr. Granchi.
I think it's important to note that this is a pay scale that will be fair. It is not equal, it is equitable. Those outside are paying at a rate that is equitable to the amount of equipment and everything used to get that water to them. So it might look like it's us being mean or however you want to take it, but it is an equitable, well-studied rate.
Okay, is that all you have, Mr. Granchi?
Yes.
Okay, does anybody else have anything, or we want to call for the roll?
Yes, just real quick, just to kind of piggyback off what you were saying. Like Mr. Hawkins said, this was off of AWW standards, American Water Works standards. So these are in line with the standards. These numbers just aren't pulled out of the air. They're numbers that he said that they could work with, that they could, maybe not the exact lowest, but not the high end either. But so these are numbers that they could work with and be fluid throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, wait, hold on for 1 second. Let me see if Ms. Spletzer wants it first. And
I think.
Oh, yeah, this would be my first, now that we're back into regular session. I agree. I think the way that the rate chart is laid out, I think it's very fair to the citizens of Newton Falls. And it's going to get us, a better rate for the water haulers that are coming in and stocking up on our bulk water and taking it elsewhere. So I think this is as fair as it could have possibly been done. And, I agree.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Barriak, did you want a second address?
Someone said, it's not, Mr. Granchi, I think, said, it's not to hurt the outside people. We just looked at it. People that get our water, we paid for the water plant. We paid for the sewer plant and the upgrades. We're not trying to hurt anybody. But would you rather us put 30% on the homeowner and 5% onto the water haulers? I mean, we're just trying to make it equitable. That's all I have to say, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, if nobody else wants a second address, whenever Mrs. King is ready, she can go ahead and call for the roll.
Splitzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Barriak,
Yes.
Zimmerman,
Yes.
Okay, ordinance passes. Okay, and the second one is ordinance 2021-22.
an ordinance requiring the registration of contractors operating within the city of Newton Falls.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any?
I'd like to address, please.
Ms. Butzer, you have the floor.
Yes. This one, under the registration period, there's a blank. There is a blank, and then under the application and issuance of the fee or certification, it talks about certification from the city income tax department. I want to know if that means Rita. One thing that is really quite confusing under exceptions, obviously it gives an exception to a homeowner to do work on their own house. But then, in paragraph D, it's also giving an exception to a handyman type sole proprietor, which is really quite confusing because throughout here, it says no person, firm, or corporation. So why are we allowing paragraph D to say handyman type sole proprietor? I also have issues with the way that the penalty, these penalties are to the contractors, I'm assuming, for failing to register.
Okay,
But I really do not like that blank at the end of paragraph B under the registration period. I'm not done yet. I do want to clarify for Mrs. Eby that this will be a one-time fee to a contractor, and it's good for an entire year. And then they do include in here that the contractor has to have proof of the liability insurance, and they also have to prove that they are carrying workers' comp. So if you have a roofer come out and do your roof and somebody falls off your roof, they have to go back on the contractor's bond and the workers' comp insurance, not your house insurance.
okay, anybody else?
Yes. I want to explain something. I didn't sponsor this legislation. There's nothing in it for me. I run a business. When I go to Gerard's $150 a year, and a $10,000 bond runs me $100 a year, and then after the first year it's $50. But they have $500,000 worth of insurance that you have to have. I had in my ward, I had a poor elderly woman, gave $3,000 of hard money. She was on a fixed income. They tore off a little bit of the siding, it took off, gone. I don't know if anybody remembers, maybe you can help me think this out, but when we had the bad hail, all that hail that came down and damaged all the roofs, well, there were some companies in here, I'm not into mentioning names. There were some bad roofs put on. There was no way to get them back up here or get anything. As far as, I want to protect the citizens of Newton Falls. And if I'm a contractor and I can't afford a $100 bond a year, that's for 20, 30, 40, how many jobs I do, it's just a $100 bond. And I can't afford to keep workman's comp on my people, which is state law. If somebody gets hurt on your property and they don't have workman's comp, that contractor, they're not going back after that contractor. They're going to go sue you, and you're going to get stuck with it. That's state law. So I just want to protect the people. I didn't sponsor this. If anybody wants to add anything or whatever, I'm way past that with trying to I've never tried to make a dime in my life on the backs of the citizens of Newton Falls. That's all I want to say, Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Granchi, Mr. Zimmerman, do you guys want to first address? Wait, hold on. Mr. Fritz, what did you have?
I'd like to address for the new legislators here how this kind of works. The exhibit does not have any section numbers in. After the exhibit is presented to our...
I can't hear you, Mr. Fritz.
I can't either. What did you say?
For the new legislators that have not been through this process before, the exhibit you have explaining what's going on has a blank in it. The reason there's a blank is it's been not codified yet. If you'll notice, there's no numbers to any of these sections. Upon passage by this council, it'll be presented to the company that does our codification, that puts it online and puts it in order. They will at that time consult me, and I'll reference back to the section as they've codified it. Meaning, they put a number 1, 2, 3, whether it's under 56, 57. So there's some general rules that they have for certain things under zoning. But again, the specific numbers we do at the end of the year. That's the reason you have a blank there. You question whether or not there's some things that are confusing. When you get these exhibits, the purpose of this is for this council to deliberate and decide if they want everything in here. When a council person asks me for a contractor registration, I go out and find similar ones by other communities similar to us, review them, find out when they were passed by that community, determine if it's within a reasonable period of time, whether I need to do additional research to make sure everything in here is in compliance with Ohio law. So I kind of draft these things, not because I think they're perfect the way they should be, I just make sure they would qualify as something legal if it were to be passed. If there's an item in here that you wish to have amended, feel free to amend those things, and if they would put us in a situation where we're in violation of the law, I will address that with council when that time comes. The reason there's a blank is it's not been codified yet. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Which one of you guys?
Yes, please. My question, I guess, City Manager, you may know, is the $100 an arbitrary number, or is that in line with other communities who do the same kind of program?
It's in line with other communities. Like John, I had checked with Gerard, and theirs is the 150. We're a smaller community. I also checked with Boardman and Austintown. Theirs were much higher, so the 100 was a fair number for our size community.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Zimmerman, did you have anything?
Yes. I just want to, from what I found in the past, go over some of the history of this exact same legislation. This was first enacted in 1985 after the tornadoes. If people can remember, back then, there was a lot of contractors coming in trying to take advantage of people in this town. So this legislation was first enacted then, but it was revoked a year later once things got back to normal. Now let's fast forward to April 16th of 2018. An ordinance requiring the registration of contractors operating within the city of Newton Falls. Sound familiar? That's this ordinance. It was tried in 2018. It was tabled after a lengthy discussion. The very next meeting, May 7th, 2018, no motion was made to remove it from the table. So it failed. It did not move forward in 2018. Some of the quotes from that, or just something here from the meeting. A quote, "It has been rejected and had gone to planning and zoning a number of times and was rejected in the past." Another quote, "No person, firm, or corporation, either as contractor or subcontractor, shall construct, alter, remove, demolish, or commence the construction, alteration, removal, or demolition of any building or structure, or shall install any equipment for the operation of a building or structure without first filing with the building inspector an application in writing and obtaining a formal license in conformity with this chapter. An exception to this license requirement shall be a homeowner and or landlord performing their own labor on property owned and or occupied by said owner." That's from the minutes from 2018. That's word for word from the exact legislation today. So this is the same legislation. I don't have the exact legislation in front of me. I apologize. I could not get that. But I do have this notes from the meeting, word for word on this legislation today that was not removed from the table in 2018. So think about that. Thank you.
Okay. Does somebody want a second address?
I would.
You have the floor.
I would like to motion that we table this and caucus it so that we can discuss it and get our concerns and issues with it out. Mr. Zimmerman can come forward and bring us that information. If we could table this until November 15th, I'd like to make that motion.
Do we have a
Mayor,
second?
Can I ask if council will suspend council rules and bring Mark up for a second to discuss this? Because I believe there are changes in this legislation as what there was originally written.
I was just going to ask that as well.
If you could, if you
Okay,
guys
do we
could
have
that.
a motion to waive council rules?
So moved.
I make second.
First, second, okay. If Mrs. King wants to call for the roll.
Granchi,
Yes.
Barriak,
Yes.
Zimmerman,
Yes.
Spletzer.
Yes.
Okay, council rules waived.
Hi. Can you address for council the differences in this ordinance now as compared to back in 2018 as Mr. Zimmerman presented? I believe back then it was stated that the city would get involved in the lawsuits and things like that, but this says we will not. All we're doing is keeping track of those registrations.
All we're doing is registering each and every contractor. And then there will be a provided list of registered contractors on our site for anybody who is willing or getting ready to do work in the city. We're not going to get involved in any lawsuits. That will be the homeowner's responsibility. The only thing that we are doing is having them list us as an insurance payee so that if there is a lawsuit,
We can provide that to the citizens.
we can provide that to the citizen, their policy and our contractor registration. That way everything is paid for along with their license. We'll have a copy of their license if there is such a license. Some of the general contractor will not have license, but you have to have license for HVAC, things of that nature. Electrical contractors, HVAC, but general contractors, tree arbors don't have to have licenses. However, we will provide you with their vendor's license and things of that nature as you can see on the exhibit.
Okay, anything else?
I have
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Stimpert, I just don't understand how the definition section can say that a contractor means any person, yada, yada, yada. But then under the exceptions, there is an exception for a handyman type sole proprietor.
I'm sorry, I did not realize that was in there, and I did not draft that. That was, and I think that could be corrected by you guys.
This is something I think that needs to be
correct. You can
done
actually,
in a caucus so that we can clean up a couple of these things like the RETA and the city income tax department. Back on even the definition section, it says contractor means any person, firm, or corporation contracting to supply. And I think there's supposed to be the word materials in there. It's not here. And work, supply materials and work, supply materials and perform work or labor for another person. I just think there are some things that need cleaned up in here.
and those are things you can clean up right now. You can make those amendments right now and vote on it. Or if you'd rather than come back to a caucus, that's fine. However, I think it would do you justice, since you have it in front of you, just to modify the terms of the exhibit to say what you wanted to say. That's what it's there for, and that's Mr. Fritz's, and I don't want to quote what his job is because he does millions of things around here, but his job is to get it to be legal, and your job is to look at it and see what you want to modify, because we may not want to use that. We may not want to charge $100. We may not want to, those are things that council has the opportunity to modify during this session. And you can do it now, you could do it during caucus next time. It's totally up to you, but I feel it's in front of you. You should probably do it now. And
Mr. Sippert, we got this on Friday, and
Okay.
it's Monday. Mr. Fritz is not available over the weekend.
I apologize, but I'm just, would like to see it passed tonight. But if you want me to come back for caucus, I can do so.
Mayor, I have.
Yeah, you have the floor, Mr. Barriak.
Council rules are suspended.
Yeah.
I don't know how Mark and the village plan on handling this, but where I work in other places, they don't come in there and start beating you with a club if you don't have the registration yet. They don't even stop you from working, but they say you're gonna have to get there by today or tomorrow and get your ducks in a row with the people, the entities I work with. Now, I get a W-2, because I think that's what it is at the end of the year, from Lordstown, Warren, all of them. I'm not telling anybody what to do or how to do it. I'm more concerned when I first saw this, all I thought about was having enough money to help our little, to get this in line, and we protect the citizens. And if you're a contractor and you can't afford $150 a year, I don't know if you should be in business.
It's $100 a year and $50 thereafter.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, but you have to have the bond.
Yes.
So it's about $150 a year. You have to they send me, CNA Surety sends me the paperwork for those, and then I send them back to renew my bond.
And exactly what you said is how I would handle it, unless you want me to carry a bat around and beat them.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add, to Ms. Fletzer's issue regarding no person, form, or corporation. We put person, form, or corporation to take care of all the people, all the categories of potential employers. That does not mean it's in violation or in conflict. The word handyman is a sole proprietor. We're looking at contractors and subcontractors. If we just put in firm or corporation, someone who works without having formalized their corporation or created a partnership, so we use the word person to cover all those other categories, then the exception for handyman comes in place. If you wanted the exception for handyman, if you want to remove the handyman exception in general, you can, but it's not in conflict because there's no person, form, or corporation or handyman. Legal term of art means it's entirely something different. Just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
And I believe, Mr. Fritz, that they could make that minor change without going back to the drawing board. Is that correct?
There's nothing to change there.
Okay.
Mr. Stemford, while we have council rules suspended, do you mind if I ask you a question about the sidewalk program as well?
Oh.
Council rules are suspended. I think that would be a problem.
Oh, boy.
I don't mind, but
Guess it's not improper. It's confusing, but not improper.
I just don't, if there's gonna be questions about that, no point in suspending council rules for you to walk back, coming back, suspend them again.
I'm fine with it. I don't know what the proper procedure is. I was looking at Mr. Fritz for that.
Oh, boy.
Anyway, with the sidewalk program, is that something that is going to happen certain months of the year? Are you going to look at it every November or something like that? Or is this going to be ongoing legislation that anytime you see a sidewalk in disrepair, that this would be enacted?
Our goal is to use it by ward, because then when the contractor comes in, they can concentrate on an area and not be all over town and disrupting the entire town at once. However, it is an ongoing legislation from January to December. However, everybody knows that you can't necessarily pour cement in probably from November to March without it costing an abundance of money, because you have to heat it with blankets and things of that nature, and it becomes a real pain. So generally speaking, it'll probably be from March, April through September, October, depending on October weather.
Okay.
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion to?
Wait, no, I've got a question since he's there. Under the 907.03 notice section of this, who's going to cover the costs of the publishing and, because it says in here that there has to be something published once each week for 2 weeks in a newspaper. Is zoning going to cover the cost of the publishing? Is zoning going to cover the cost of the postage? I want to make sure that zoning is going to pay for what it's doing and council doesn't have to take on that whole burden.
That will be under my jurisdiction, under my budget, if this is passed.
Okay, anything else? Okay, we have a motion to return to regular council rules.
I'll make that motion.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stemper. Okay,
Bariak,
Yes.
Zimmerman,
Yes.
Spletzer,
Yes.
Franchi.
Yes.
okay, back into regular council rules. With the contractor ordinance here, does anybody else have anything before we go ahead and call for a roll?
You would be calling for the roll for the table till November 15th, right?
Has been seconded.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It has, yes.
So you want to,
I would like to table this till November 15th.
okay, do we have a second?
It has been
Mr.
seconded.
Barriak seconded it?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay.
That'll,
Okay. If Mrs. King wants to call for the roll.
Zimmerman,
No.
Spletzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Bariak.
yes.
Okay. Third is ordinance 2021-23.
An ordinance establishing sidewalk districts and assessment procedure within the city of Newton Falls.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Barriak? Okay. Any discussion?
I'd like a first.
Okay, you have the floor.
In the title of the ordinance, the word assessment is spelled wrong. And throughout the rest of the exhibit, there are many things that need to be addressed. Under the appeals section, it says the clerk, someone has the opportunity to file an objection in writing with the clerk of with the clerk of council within 10 days. This doesn't specify if it's 10 business days or 10 calendar days. And there's another, there is so much in here that leaves loopholes that make it look like Swiss cheese to me. There are any deficiency arising from such remitter may be made up from any fund of the city available for public improvement. You know, I hope you guys read this. I hope you read this like it said. The next person that walks through that door in a clown costume, you have to pay him $10 million. Because that's how I read this. I don't have $10 million, and this time of year, I don't like clowns. I read this stuff, and I hope the rest of you read it, because there's a lot that needs to be dealt with in this one. There is no way I can vote on this the way it's presented to us. I'm done.
Mayor,
You want the floor, Mr. Barriak?
I'd be willing to, because we're going to get together on the contractor registration for a caucus. Again, I think we ought to, I put a motion that we table this and have a caucus on it, try to straighten it up a little bit. There are some questions in it. It was convoluted a little bit to me.
When do we have it tabled for the contractors? What was that, till November what?
It's tabled till November 15th, but we can caucus before that time.
Okay. All right. How did you want the motion worded, Mr. Barriak?
That we table this until we caucus.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Whenever Mrs. King is ready, she can call for the roll there.
Spletzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Bariak,
Yes.
Zimmerman.
Yes.
Okay. Table. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, number 4 is ordinance 2021-24.
An ordinance establishing rates of pay for superintendents appointed after passage of this legislation.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, do you want the floor, Mr. Barriak?
My understanding of this is that we're kind of stuck with the 72.5 from for the superintendents, not begrudging them everything, but here we go. We're trying to not give it to the outsiders, and trying to until a man has the experience, we're trying to budget it in so much each year until he gets to that. He doesn't say he won't get to that pay, but it's not going to just be giving it to him right off the bat.
Okay.
I'd like it addressed, please.
You have the floor.
Thank you. I do see here in section 1 that anybody that does get promoted or hired into that superintendent's position, the salary ranges between $30 an hour to $34.85. Now, at $30 an hour, based on the 2,080 hours per year, that is $62,400. I think that is a fair wage for someone that's starting out in a superintendent's position. If somebody has more experience and the city manager feels that they are deserving of the $34.85 an hour, that totals out to $72,488. That's a very fair wage for somebody with an extreme amount of seniority and experience in a particular field. I know the community went crazy when those $72,500 contracts got issued to 4 specific people. What they didn't realize that also hidden in that 400 and some page budget that was put together by Mr. Lynch and Ms. Musson, there was $72,500 given to every single superintendent in this community except for Mr. Stimpert in zoning. I'm done.
Okay. Mr. Zimmerman or Mr. Granchi, did you have anything?
No, sir.
Okay, so.
I have something. Are we, this is the same thought process I had for the COLA last week. Are we in any position to even be talking about hiring anyone at any rate at any point until we get that figured out?
Can I?
Yeah. Yeah, you could.
Did I shut it off? Sorry. Mr. Granchi, just to answer your question, we have currently a superintendent that is retiring at the end of this month. So to avoid giving that person, I shouldn't say to avoid, but instead of giving that person the start out salary of $72,500 that's taking his position right within the department, it was stated that he would begin at the 30 hours and work his way up to the $72,500. But there is no pay ordinance that describes the
So there's
situation.
an immediate need then?
What's that?
So there's an immediate need because of positions.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, to clarify the starting wage. Anybody else have anything? Okay, if not, whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Granchi?
Yes.
Barriak?
Yes?
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Swetzer?
Yes.
Okay, passes. Okay. Too bad Chuck's not here. I'll go ahead and read Resolution 34-2021. It says a resolution of appreciation to Charles E. Lane for his years of service to the city of Newton Falls, whereas Charles E. Lane began his career with the city of Newton Falls as a maintenance relief operator with the city of Newton Falls Water Department on April 19, 1990, and whereas Chuck Lane was promoted to crew chief in 2014, whereas in 2018, Chuck took the position of water distribution superintendent, and whereas during his time with the city, Chuck Lane also served as union president, and Charles Lane was served in the Water Distribution Department of the City of Newton Falls for over 30 years and will retire the end of October 21. And whereas Chuck has demonstrated his dedication to and interest to the community by his commitment to serving the residents and improving the quality of life of its residents, and whereas during the years Chuck has shown his knowledge of the city and dedication to the city and the City of Newton Falls, which has been sincerely appreciated by the City Council and its residents, Council for the City of Newton Falls, State of Ohio hereby resolves Section 1, special recognition and appreciation is hereby given to Charles E. Lane for his 30-plus years of service to the City of Newton Falls. And Section 2, the Newton Falls City Council and city residents, by the way of this resolution, wish to express their sincere appreciation to Charles E. Lane for his service to the community and wish him the best in the future. Do we have a motion for this?
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Mr. Barriak?
Mayor, if I may. I've known Chuck for many years. I've known when before he moved up to the boss, he was always there when you needed him, and even when he made boss, he was there in the ditch. I have no problem. I wish him Godspeed, that he has a beautiful retirement, and I will vote for this tonight.
Mayor, I'd like to be recognized, please.
You have the floor, Ms. Splitzer.
Thank you. Mr. Barriak, I've known Mr. Lane long enough to call him Chucky. Back in the day when we were kids, he was known as Chucky, and I think still to this day, a lot of people still call him Chucky, and I just really would like to make sure that he is honored for all of his years of service to this community. He's done an outstanding job, and I really do wish him many happy years of retirement. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, sir. I would like to congratulate Mr. Lane on his retirement and thank him for his 30 years of service with the city.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes, I'd like to echo my colleagues in thanking him for his selfless service through the years and wish him the best in the future endeavors.
Okay, if nobody else, I just wanted to say, Chucky Lane, we're proud of you, and hopefully after you retire, you'll still meet me up at Convenient and have coffee in the morning like you do now. But either way, well-deserved, and we're proud of you. So, Mrs. King, whenever you're ready to call for the roll.
Barriak.
Yes?
Zimmerman.
Yes.
Spletzer.
Yes.
Franchi.
Yes.
All right, resolution passes. All right, number 6 is...
I'm sorry. Motion to orally sanction Mr. Zimmerman for violating Council Rule 121.03 F6.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, any discussion?
I'd like to speak.
You have the floor.
Thank you. Mr. Zimmerman, I placed before you and the rest of the members of council the minutes that Mrs. King drafted from our September 15th meeting. I specifically remember we were both absent at the September 20th meeting here in council. You had every opportunity to report that you attended the September 15th TIB meeting when you came to the meeting on October 4th, and you did not.
Okay, anything else, Ms. Bletzer?
I shall read from council rules, if you would like me to, because in Council Rule 121.03, paragraph F, 6. Any committee of council shall be limited in its powers and authority to acting as an arm of council by overseeing and or studying a particular issue, area of responsibility, or topic, and by then reporting its findings and or recommendations back to council. I just read it verbatim, word for word in council rules. In the charter under the TIB, It specifically says, Section 4 is the Treasury Investment Board. The Treasury Investment Board shall hold a quarterly meeting and submit a written report. That's what you got today from me. A written report to City Council following each meeting of the board. I have read from council rules. I have read from the Treasury Investment Board. Do you have anything to say for yourself, Mr. Zimmerman?
Please read number 7 on that list that you read, 121.03 F6. Please read number 7.
Do you have it?
Yes, I do.
Then you read it.
It says no committee report may be forwarded to council unless the committee has first met and authorized said report.
So you're telling me that this overrides what the charter says?
That you provided a copy of minutes with handwriting on it.
I provided you the draft minutes that Mrs. King drew up with notes that I made on it from myself.
Yes.
When I gave the oral report to the public and to council, you specifically said, I have nothing to report.
Well, also, excuse me, because we were 3 weeks removed from the meeting. I was sick prior to that. That was my first meeting after the missed meeting, and I apologize for the oversight. That's all it was an oversight.
You have the floor, Mr. Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pretty confused because the rules that listed here are for council committees. It's committee as a whole. It doesn't identify who reports, what time frame they're supposed to report back, or how they're supposed to report. Same thing with Treasury Investment Board. We're required to keep minutes. It doesn't say whether we have to report them upon the drafts being approved. Again, it doesn't specify a time, a location. If someone were to miss a meeting and not be there, they'd be making a report. In the past, we would have hundreds of people sanctioned for the fact they didn't make reports. The section that you cited, section 6, F6, lists committee of council, but doesn't say the member of council appointed to that committee must. It says committee of council. This is a committee makes reports when they have a recommendation or a finding. It has nothing to do with whether or not they make a report on the floor at the next council meeting. And it doesn't change anything with regard to the section on the Treasury Investment Board. So I'm not exactly sure what you're sanctioning him for, and I would suggest that
I just read to you why I felt that he needed to be sanctioned. You know, if this is the problem that we have with the charter, then it needs to be cleaned up. It's not my fault. I read to you what the charter says.
It's not the charter, it's an ordinance, ma'am. The charter's on the Treasury Investment Board. The section you're reading on, that you originally started your sanction, is under ordinance of committee rules, of council rules.
I read to you from the charter, Mr. Fritz.
Ma'am, section F6 is not the charter.
I know that.
Okay.
I did read what Article 6, Section 4 says.
Correct. That involves the Treasury Investment Board.
That's correct.
Doesn't say when, how, time, or who's to make these reports. They make written reports and we submit them to the board. I'm not sure how that addresses and makes a responsibility to one individual council member.
Mr. Fritz, this is the first offense. This is for an oral sanction, that's all.
It doesn't matter what the level of sanction, ma'am. I'm just indicating that if you're sanctioning for things, and I mean, no disrespect what I say is, if you're sanctioning someone because council gets to they police themselves, you sanction someone because of a dress code violation, I think you're going to run into problems down the road if you continue with sanctions.
Okay. Mr. Barriak, did you want to address?
This goes to Mr. Fritz. Mr. Fritz, I'm not going to argue the point right now. The point that this community and its citizens should know. Don't you think we ought to know that you pulled $1 million out of the, and you were there, Mr. Lynch was there. How do we operate? Do we operate like, well, I didn't know.
Point of order, sir. That has nothing to do with the reprimand as stated.
Let him continue. Continue.
What my problem is everything was kept hush-hush. Do you think I'd have gone along with this? You would have reported. You are on finance. You wouldn't let me on finance. Mr. Waddell and Mr. Albertine said, oh no, we want to stay on it. We're on since the day they got here. and until the day they left. And this is what we got. We knew nothing, and you were right in there. You were the only, one of the.
Point of order, please. What does that have to do with the reprimand?
That has to do with you not coming
It has
forward.
nothing to do with the reprimand, sir.
Well, you don't, well.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
What's your point of order?
What's your point
Like I
of
said,
order?
it has nothing to do with the reprimand. He's talking about himself.
I'm talking about
Why you weren't-
getting stand up and telling the people
You're
what
asking why
you
you weren't
were
on
in
the
on.
board, sir. That's what you're asking. I had nothing to do with whether you were put on the board or not.
Okay, but you do have the ability to realize that in rule number 6, it says that you are limited in your powers. I don't remember anybody telling you guys that you could move hundreds of thousands of dollars just on your own between a couple of you. And now we're in a hole and wondering why we have to have a special finance person, that we have to pay money to dig us out of this hole.
But excuse me,
You
sir,
didn't have the authority to do that.
I didn't move the money. And anyone that voted did not move the money.
You
It
don't
was a
have
recommendation
you
to
don't
move
have
the
the
money,
floor.
but
You
we did
don't-
not move the money.
Mr. Zimmerman, you don't have
There
the
is a
floor.
big difference, sir. Please state that.
You don't have the floor. You made the recommendation to move the money. It didn't move
Yes, sir.
itself.
But I did not move it, did I? Thank you. Silence is worth a million words right here.
Keep running your mouth and you can keep walking. I said you don't have the floor. Don't sit there and look at me or you
I
can
can
get
look right
walking.
at you. There's nothing wrong with that.
Turn your eyes.
I'm looking right at you. You're
Mayor.
speaking.
Get him out of here.
For what, sir?
Because you won't shut your mouth.
'Cause I'm
You don't
looking right
have,
at you,
get
sir.
him out of here.
Please explain why you're removing me. What did I do wrong? Please explain the ordinance or whatever your rule is for removing me.
You know why?
What did you
Because
do
we
right?
have 2 addresses and you've had about 7 of them just now. Get him out of here. Mr. Granchi, would you like to weigh in on this?
Last week, I voted not last week, last meeting, to reprimand a friend of mine before, during, and after serving on council together. Mr. Zimmerman admitted he made a mistake. Right is right and wrong is wrong.
May I have a second addressman?
Yes.
What I said last week, that this council, the members, is going to try to be as transparent as we can. It's just like with any of the other annexations, any of the other things, we're all kept in the dark. I had no knowledge of this, that's why I'm upset. Do you think that I would have said, hey, keep taking the money? He was the only councilman, and I don't know who he was listening to, but I never heard no words come out of his mouth. Now this community, and so same with you, Mr. Fritz, now this community is in bad shape. And we're going to try to fix it, but is this the kind of government you want? Do you want something in the dark, or what's done in the dark, you better realize will come to the light. What's done in the dark eventually will come to the light. And I've had a lot of people ask me, where was the money? Where's the money? Where's that? I said, we're just trying to start to figure it out right now. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Ms. Butzer or Ms. Granchi, or Mr. Granchi, do you want a second address before we call for the roll? Okay.
No, thank you.
Okay. If Mrs. King wants to call for the roll.
Splitzer,
Yes.
Granchi,
Yes.
Barriak.
Yes.
Okay, passes. Okay. Number 7.
Motion to appoint Mr. Barriak as Vice President of Council.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes, I'll speak first since I submitted it. I realized once Mr. Kropp resigned, he was holding the position of Vice President of Council, and I think, Mr. Mayor, in the event that something, God forbid, should happen to you, that somebody, at least somebody up here needs to be named the Vice President of Council, and something we need to put on our radar for our next meeting is that we need to rearrange our council
Committees.
But for right now, I felt that this was the most important thing, and we needed to make sure that somebody was vice president of council. I put Mr. Barriak's name in there because he's been here the longest, and I'm up for re-election this November. Mr. Granchi will be up for re-election next year. Mr. Zimmerman's name is on the election ballot this year. So Mr. Barriak is the one that's probably guaranteed to be in that seat long enough to hold this position.
Mr. Granchi, did you have anything?
No, Mr. Barriak's the most tenured person here, so I would have to do a lot of studying if I were to be appointed as that, so.
Okay. If nothing else, if Mrs. King wants to call for the roll.
Granchi?
Yes.
Barriak?
Excuse me, sir. Mr. Fritz, am I allowed to vote on this?
Doesn't change your pay rate, also you'd be allowed to vote.
What's that?
You should be allowed to vote, doesn't change your pay rate or anything.
It doesn't change your pay. So yes, you're allowed to vote.
Yes.
You can still stay if you wish.
Yes, so I have the honor of serving.
Spitzer?
Yes.
Okay. Vice is Mr. Barriak. Okay.
Motion to accept the resignation of Brian Kropp from the at-large council position per his statement at the October 4th, 2021 council meeting.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
What's that?
Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yes, question for Mr. Fritz. Does this have to be a written statement, or can we accept a verbal resignation?
This is more of a housekeeping matter, sir. Quite frankly, when he puts in his resignation and makes it a public announcement, it should be there for purposes of things like the necessity to take care of pay and things like that. We like to make some sort of evidence of that fact. We're trying to put it in place now.
Understood.
Okay, any other discussion?
Mr. Fritz, could you tell me where this is, where it says in the charter or council rules that council needs to officially accept a resignation?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
No, as I just suggested to him, it's a housekeeping matter to make sure we things piled up properly in place.
Mr. Barriak?
I'm not, Mr. Fritz, did you just say it doesn't have to be in writing? I couldn't, huh?
The resignation takes effect when he orally stated he's resigning and left. Now, my question to you would be, as a lawyer, I worry about all the possibilities of things that could happen. Let's say he shows up at 2 meetings and says, I really changed my mind. Where's my pay for the last month and a half? Or he comes in and says, we improperly had something done. I believe that as a housekeeping measure, the best thing to do is to at least retroactively put in writing the acceptance of his resignation so that everyone's clear on what's happening. While not required, I would legally prefer to have it done.
Okay. Anyone else?
So,
Yeah, go ahead, finish up, Mr. Barriak. Yeah, Mr. Barriak still has the floor.
could you just say, though, Mr. Fritz, that we could do this way tonight, or you wanted something written up?
This is sufficient. It'll be in the record. We don't have to write something up. It'll be in the record.
Okay, that's what I thought, all right.
Okay, Ms. Spitzer, did you want to second?
Yes, I would like to address Mr. Fritz. Mr. Fritz, where was your concern in November of 2020 when Mr. Lyle Waddell was sitting in my seat? That didn't bother you a bit. But now you're letting this? You need a housekeeping issue to deal with this? I was sworn in on November 18th. Lyle Waddell did not sign or did not file a pro se lawsuit against me until November 20th. You weren't concerned in November of 2020. I can't imagine that you're concerned now.
I will address that. I was concerned when I did that last year. Very much so, because what ends up happening is we had two competing members with no clarification from any court on what to do. So either way I would have gone, someone would be yelling at me about how it was handled. I'm okay with that. That's my job. So when you say I didn't care, that's 100% not true. I did care. I made the best guesses I possibly could based upon the laws that was established, and the court ultimately made the decision to modify it.
Mayor Klein, I have no.
Okay, let me see if Mr. Granchi has one more address first.
I'll just do my second of, I just want to thank Mr. Kraut for volunteering his time for our community, and I wish him well.
Okay, Mr. Barriak.
I want to tell Mr. Fritz that after Mrs. Spletzer was sworn in, I called the next morning. I want the people to know this. And Mr. Fritz said, wait a minute. He's got 15 days before he might file an appeal. Didn't he file an appeal Friday? We put the cart in front of the horse. She should have been on council, and Mayor Waddell could have got his legal team and tried to get back on. That's where we put you did it that way, Mr. Fritz. Is that true?
I made a decision.
Yeah,
last
there
year,
you go.
If I may finish, I made a decision that based upon the potential legalities, that the decision made is the person sitting there should retain the seat until the court makes a decision.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a county commissioner, they put Mrs. Frenchco down there and then let Mr. Polifka fight his way back. That's the way this should have been done here.
All right, point of order. This has nothing to do with the resignation of Mr.
Let's
Kraut.
go ahead and call for the roll.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right.
Barriak,
Yes.
Spletzer,
Abstain.
Grianchi,
Yes.
Okay, it doesn't pass due to lack of votes. Okay, either way on that, I believe that's a formality. I think that after it's turned in and stuff, I believe that's, okay. Number 9.
a motion to accept the opt-out recommendations attached.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I think it was Tessa had asked it to be tabled, correct? Or John, to meet with
John did. John
Okay.
asked for
Okay.
those recommendations also to be tabled again because we talked some about them during the caucus, but I'm sorry, is it on the table?
No.
Motion to accept.
Did we table this?
We didn't do anything with it yet.
Okay.
You didn't do anything.
Okay, John, do you want to make a motion to table this? Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
I make the motion to table it. Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I wanted to do.
All right, whenever Mrs.
Until when or how?
November 15th, is that where we want to?
Sure. November 15th would be a good time to,
Because what was the other item there that was tabled with that?
Sidewalk and the contractor
Yeah,
registration
so we
both,
just make sure that they're both tabled until the same time,
all three
all
of them.
three.
or all three.
And then we've also got the AMP with the price tag of 10 million. That one also is tabled till November 15th. We have 4 things now that will be on the table till November 15th.
Okay. So whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll on that.
Spletzer,
Yes.
Grianchi,
Yes.
Barriak,
Yes.
Okay, motion is tabled. Public comments open to non-agenda items, also name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
Anna Eby, 50 West 9th Street. So with this $100 a year, it's going to cost me, I'm sure, $100 more a year to have them come check out my furnace and air conditioner. Because I don't believe the contractor will pay it. The money is going to be passed on. It's economics, come on. That's what's happening now with everything. With the supply chain, with everything going on. And I would also like to ask that council or whoever's in charge of the electric meters, have them stop putting them on until this is done. Because they are just going crazy putting them on homes when people aren't even home. They don't even know they have them. They do not even know they have them. My next door neighbor had one put on his home, across the street had one put on her home, and she's in California. And the other side, he pulled in the driveway when they were putting it on. They're just going crazy putting them on people's homes, and they don't even know they've got them. And one more thing. The sewer bill did go up last month, and I'm sure it'll be up again this month. So, we had no notice. No notification, no nothing. So I would ask, please, when the water is going to go up, because he's not sure it'll start in January, to please put something in the bill so we could know it's going to be going up the next month. I mean, the communication in this town is terrible. It really needs better. Thank you.
Julie Lemon, 2750 East River Road. Thoroughly appalled about what I've heard tonight. I think a majority of us were sitting here in shock and awe and our jaws hitting the floor with the state of the city's finances. It seems like it would almost be a good idea to remove Mr. Zimmerman from the committee, the finance board. Clearly, I don't remember hearing anything, not even the $500,000 that was moved on May 5th. I don't remember Mr. Fritz, who sits on the TIV board, saying the same either. $500,000 is a lot of money. And it takes the average person in Ohio a very long time to make that just in wages. But to some people, it's no big deal. For a community this size, it's a very big deal. And I know that Article 3, Section 12 prohibits council from making any suggestions regarding administration appointment. But I'm going to ask Mrs. Pretty, I cannot tell you what to do, but I'm going to ask that you consider placing Attorney Fritz on administrative leave without pay, pending an investigation. There's a lot of money missing, and everybody else that sat on that board is no longer here except for Mr. Zimmerman. There needs to be some point of accountability, and he needs to be held accountable, and an investigation needs to be done. Also, everybody knows that Mr. Lynch had paid with the city's credit card the $22.86 to BeenVerified.com. Mrs. Pretty, this is the email I got from them. I'm going to send this to you. There's a fax number and everything. With the judge's signature, people in this town can find out if they've been verified by David Lynch. A judge's signature with a subpoena. So all that information's in here, and I will be emailing it to you as well. Thank you.
Mark Snipper, 1023 Page Court. I would like everybody to look at this. Does everybody know what this is?
Uh-huh.
This is litter
Litter.
that happens all the time. And I know Bob's here, and he said it's a circulation issue. However, in my neighborhood, this is what we get.
And I bet your driveway's over there.
And my driveway's over there. And I have a mailbox in which you could put it in. That's a mailbox with, not the mailbox where you put the mail in, but a mailbox where you can put the newspaper in. But yet, that's where it ends up, every week. I would like to see something done about this. If you walk around town, it's garbage that we're trying to collect and get cleaned up in this city. And that is number one thing that we need to clean up. Maybe not the number one thing, but that's one of the things we can clean up very quickly. The other thing I wanted to mention was, I think it was Tessa that we was asking about the 1023 channel. We have a call into Spectrum Business. We are trying to get that transferred over to here. We have some outdated equipment. I believe, I don't want to date it, but I believe it's from either the 70s or 80s, but I'm not 100% sure. But we do have a converter box that we got that supposedly converts it from analog to digital, and they're telling us that we still need to upgrade it to bring it over here. We have fiber optic here, however, we need to bring the entire thing over here. It's going to be cost us a little bit of money. I don't have those figures yet. I'm hoping to have them by the end of this week, but I will let you know when I do. I will be sending those to Pam when I do get them. However, that is the short and long-term answer. The new equipment that we would receive has a chip in it that is similar to the chip in all of these cars that we're getting, that we have problems with. It's the car chip that comes from China. So a lot of that equipment is on back order, so we may not even get this done this year. But the simple fix right now is almost every 4 to 6 hours to reset it. And since we're not in that building, it's really hard to hit the on and off button every 4 to 6 hours. I know that's not going to help anybody, but that's what we have to do with this old machinery. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stemper.
I was looking for
Oh,
a
just let the
counselor
wind
on that.
blow it down to the end of the cul-de-sac. That's what happens on my road.
Laura Naheisel, 227 North Center Street. So this in regards to the Treasury Investment Board. Under 121.3, it's one of the sections, it's 6. It says, any committee of council shall be limited in its powers and authority to acting as an arm of council by overseeing or studying a particular issue, area of responsibility or topic, and by then reporting its findings and or recommendations back to council. The last one says, council committee shall have no administrative authority. So I would assume that doing what was done would fall under a violation for both of those, because moving money, it was never approved. It was never brought to council. It wasn't even the recommendations, which it says, recommendations back to council were never done. I can tell you that most of us were in shock when we heard about these things being moved, because it wasn't brought to us. We heard about Parks and Rec and all the other different committees and the reports back and what activities were done throughout the town and where people attended, which were lower on the list of priorities than we're moving $500,000. So that's the first thing. Let's see. That was pretty much it. That's all I really wanted to say about that. But thank you.
Chelsea Harper, 128 West Corey. Okay, sorry, I took screenshots, that way I could try and attempt to fit everything in 3 minutes. Didn't write it on my hand this week. Okay, so for the council committee things and them not reporting things, bringing back a drafted bunch of notes or minutes is not appropriate to report to the entire city of Newton Falls because it has not been approved yet. So Adam's technically right in that situation. Not bringing it to said meeting that he was supposed to be bringing it to, the man was dying in a hospital. The next thing, if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, it's a duck. If it walks like a duck and it talks like a swan, it's probably full of crap. Seeing as how I don't want to use foul language standing up at a podium at a council meeting. So the next thing, if we're going to start reprimanding people for breaking council rules, there's quite a few that we need to go over. So Article 3, Section 4, you're going to want to look at Section C. While in office, they have been convicted of a felony or crime involving moral turpitude. So for those of you who don't know what the definition of that is, it's a phrase that describes wicked, deviant behavior constituting an immoral, unethical, or unjust departure from ordinary social standards such that it would shock a community. Meaning that there should be more people up there that should be reprimanded. Next.
If you look at the charter and if you look at the council rules, including the Treasury Investment Board, you're picking out pieces that fit what you're trying to do and who you're trying to attack. You are not reading the whole amount of the actual law that is in there. I watched people railroad 2 people tonight, one of which has been here a long time and has done her job to the nth degree. I watched her do this job as a little kid watching my mom on TV. And you want to railroad her over some grammatical mistakes? I'm sorry, but maybe she was writing it how it sounded coming out. Next. People getting thrown out of here. I'm sorry, Mayor Klein, my parents taught me that you are supposed to look at the person that you are speaking to, or that is speaking to you because it is respectful. So that part I'm really confused on, because I agree with 90% of what you say and what you do up here. So I'm really confused. Next, Article 3, Section 14, sorry. I was trying to keep it all together. Now I'm shaking because I'm irritated. City clerk. The city clerk shall also serve as clerk of council. The city clerk shall keep the records of city council and perform such other duties as are required by ordinance or resolution. All officers and employees of city council shall serve during the pleasure thereof. Last I checked, it doesn't say that she has to spell everything the right way. If you want to spell it for her, go ahead and do it. The other things I wanted to point out were in council rules 121.03, G1, G3, G6, G7, and G10. Because you're really going to want to write those down and sanction everyone else. Chapter 5, 102.03, it's also part of the ORC. It is Section E and Section F.
Okay, you have to finish up, Ms. Harper. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Marilyn Lee, 515 North Canal Street. I'm coming to be positive. Autumn in the Falls is this Saturday. I hope to see a lot of people out there. It's going to be a little chilly, and I'm chilly outside, and I'm selling hats and scarves. Hope to see you guys there.
Katie Carl, 128 West Quarry. There has been a lot that happened that I didn't even get to see tonight, taking care of the babies. But from what I did see, there was a lot of inconsistency, a lot of threats, a lot of not following the rules, and a lot of back and forth that should not have happened. If you want to bring the community together, if you want to be transparent, then start following your own rules. Not throwing people out, not threatening. Treasury Investment Board, nobody here obviously understands it at all. Okay, because the only person that can transfer the money legally is the finance director, period. That's it. Nobody else can put any of that money in their pocket. Okay, look it up, learn. Okay, that's it. No one else can touch that money. Learn, educate yourself. Don't make yourself look foolish, because that's exactly what you're doing. All right, and to make accusations against your law director and to actually threaten your law director is wrong, which happened at the last meeting. So sanctions should have been given for that. They weren't. All right, you're picking and choosing. Hey, that's on you guys. The council, the body of council. Again, things need to change. If you want our community to come together and quit being a laughingstock, starts with all of you. All of you. And I'm sorry, but it's real evident that it's not happening. It's really not happening. I hope that can change. I hope it can change quickly, because it's not, and it hasn't. Thank you very much.
Jim Lawanawansi, 10 East Liberty Street. Wow. That's all I can say. Wow. Mrs. Pretty, I feel sorry for you. you stepped into a big load of, I can't say it here. I am in shock that we're $500,000 in debt, at least that we know of now. I'm shocked. But I shouldn't be shocked. I really shouldn't be. With all the shenanigans that were going on here, I should not be shocked. And I would ask you, as city manager, to immediately put a stop to the installation of these meters until we decide exactly what's going on with them. We may even want to consider just selling the rest of the meters that we have on the open market to recover the cost of that, or what we can to help cover the debt that we've incurred for that program so far. I understand that those meters weren't bought brand new. They were bought from the city of Canton or Akron or someplace. I heard that through the grapevine. And remember, look up the case of Cuyahoga Falls. They sued for $3.7 million. Cuyahoga Falls sued for $3.7 million. Johnson Controls, Aclara, and 2 other companies over their water and electric meters that were supposed to be smart meters, and they failed after 10 years. And in 15 years, we're only going to make $491,000 back off of ours. I'm asking you to take a really close look at that when we're $500,000 in debt. Really close look. I'm shocked. Really, really shocked, and our utility bills are high now. And the other thing I want to say is, I got the final paperwork from my attorney today, and the cases are all closed, and as I'm sure most of you would have figured, I was found not guilty on any of the charges brought by Mr. Lynch of defamation of character and or slander. I was cleared of all of that. The appeals period is passed, and there's nothing else that he can bring against me concerning that, because it was an act of political speech at a political rally, and it was an act of freedom of speech. The judge found in my favor on that, and you'll probably be receiving the papers for the city also on that, a copy of that. I just wanted everyone to know that there was no finding against me in that. It was protected freedom of speech.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, closing remarks. Mr. Barriak, do you have anything?
I'd like to say tonight to all the good people in Newton Falls, I don't want to guess at it, but I'm going to say that I feel that the people in Newton Falls want this council transparent, and we want accountability. And we haven't had that. Now, let the cards play where they may, but I sat on this council for 4.5 years. I couldn't even get a motion on the floor. They beat me up, and I don't care. But I'm not giving up on the good town that I represent. And all I want for it is to have good, honest government and let the people know. So yes, as a couple of them said tonight, so they know what's going on. I appreciate the honor that Mr. Granchi and Mrs. Splitzer gave me. I appreciate the honor. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Splitzer, do you have anything?
Yes, I do. Mr. Barriak, you will make a fine vice president of council. I would like to also thank the rest of the people that come out and have the courage to get up to that podium and at least speak to us. I really do want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for coming up there and speaking to us, and for even just coming to these meetings. There's a lot of you I know that at home can't make it, or you prefer to watch it through the YouTube, but Hopefully with what Mr. Stimpert told us, we will get this situation with the Spectrum Channel 1023 rectified by the next meeting. And I want to thank Marilyn Lee for mentioning the Autumn in the Falls. And I want to make sure that I mention that the Pluck-a-Duck is on November 7th. This is a fundraiser to say our beloved community center. So everybody please keep the Pluck-a-Duck in mind. You will see people throughout the community, I think, selling the ducks, but this one is November 7th. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Granchi.
Yeah, I was going to touch on Autumn in the Falls as well. It's on Saturday from 10 to 4. Broad Street will be closed between Center and Canal. They'll feature things like crafts, gifts, antiques, food, specialty items, all of that kind of stuff. But as far as this meeting goes, I'm disappointed with the way it went toward the end. Personality clashes, I understand, happen. We can't conduct meetings like this. We can't throw people out because they were looking at someone. We can't throw people out because I understand talking out of turn, but we sanction someone for that. We can't just throw people out all the time. This is how we end up on the news looking like fools. We need to clean up our act if we expect the community to get better. It starts with us, and we have to do this. That's all I have.
Okay. Ms. City Manager, do you have anything?
I just want to say to the public, as Mr. Lawanawasu had indicated, myself and Mr. Housley both walked into a big mess. I have the utmost confidence in Sean. I did not know him going into this. I called around. Him and I talked a number of times before he even came on board. And when he did come on board to walk into what he walked into, to me, the money that he is making is not nearly enough. Because he is trying his best to turn this community around, figure out what we can do financially to save the community from the dollars that have been spent, and just figure out going forward. He's also trying to get us into 2022 with the budget and make sure that we're sound going into 2022. So I am happy that he came on board. Was it the ultimate? No, because he's not here for a long period of time. I'm not sure where Mr. Zimmerman got the 90 days from, but that's not what the ordinance even says. So we have him for approximately another 4 weeks. So after that, it could be on a case-by-case basis if we need him. But I feel confident in his abilities and what he is doing for this community. He doesn't have a dog in this fight. He's here to help and to resolve the issues that we have. And I'm happy to have his resources. He has given us a number of items outside of financial things that his village does compared to what we need to do. And some of those things we're taking a serious look at, which I think we need to take a look at. So that's all I want to say, is that I'm just pleased that he is on board at this point in time to help us through this.
All right. Thank you. I just want to thank everybody, thank the citizens, thank the people that continue to come out and ask questions, give their input and such, and I appreciate it. I think council does too. I want to thank council. A couple things that I want to address. Obviously, Ms. Harper asked about Mr. Zimmerman being tossed out. You know, he can look at me all he wants, but I have council rules up here that I keep out here and stuff like that. So, like I said, if he thinks I'm handsome and wants to stare at me all night, go for it. But council rule number 2 says that you must be recognized to speak. You know, not 3 times, not 4 times, not 7 times. When your time is up, and if this individual continues to speak, this individual cannot speak. That's not the way that you run a meeting. For the time that I've been the mayor, going on 2 years or whatever, I have all kinds of notes as reminders to remind me of these things. I'm fair, you know, and I don't hold grudges. I don't do those types of things. Just because somebody wants to push my buttons. I don't care about. Do it while you follow the rules. You know, so that has that in order. And then Ms. Carl, I wish that she was still here because she wants to put on this narrative all the time of the laughing stock of Newton Falls. Yeah, we are. We're a laughing stock because $1.5 million or whatever was moved behind our backs. Individuals up here weren't told about it. You weren't told about it. There was no vote done. It's really sad. We want to talk about it. We want to rip on. I don't know what insult was put out there towards the law director, whoever last week. Somebody makes that allegation and takes off and runs. What I would be upset with is why $400,000 was taken from the electric department last year, and now we're struggling right now. Yeah, we're struggling trying to figure out how in the world we're going to pay it back. We have to. And then when our account is negative 200, negative 300,000, what do we do? And if your account at home is negative, what does that mean? It means not good. So we're struggling to do these things. But then you want to make the allegations every week that these people up here are a laughingstock or a joke. Well, they're not. You know what's a joke is that council voted at one point in time, said no, that we're not going to do any more roads. Not because we don't want to have nice roads. I wish our roads were streets of gold. But I know I'm not going to see that until I get to heaven. But the fact of the matter is I want nice roads. Council voted no because we had $40,000. It was going to be well over $200,000. But somebody decided on their own, well, they're going to do it anyways. So now, with $40,000 in the account, we have a $210,000 bill. You know, that's something to get upset about. That's something. That's what the joke is. And the fact of the matter is, and I use this cliche all the time, we're not going to make excuses for this. We're in a tough situation. But the fact of the matter is I have people, I'll go into the gas station, they'll say, what are you doing, Mayor? It doesn't look good. I say, it looks real good. What are you talking about? It doesn't look good. Fact of the matter is, you all like new kitchen cupboards and cabinets, don't you? Everybody likes them. They're expensive. And you probably know the rest of the cliche. We like the new cupboards, but we don't like the mess of cleaning up and tearing out the old. And that's where we're at right now. We're cleaning up the mess from old. And I can't wait to get these new kitchen cupboards. Newton Falls is going to turn out well, because we're not going to quit. We're going to continue to move forward. We're going to fix these reds. You know, we're not just throwing a couple bucks here to fix the negatives and make the red look good. We're going to see why did it get like that and fix it, you know, as we move forward. Making sure we're not overspending. Making sure that this individual, and whoever else is up here, that you each got a chance to listen, you each got a chance to weigh in, and that you know what's going on. You know, if we have to slow down and we have to table things each and every week so we get to discuss it, is there something wrong with that? You know, I begged individuals for a year and a half, slow down, please do things right, and we wouldn't. And that's why we're in a situation we're in now. If people think that that's a joke, well, then I've been a joke my whole life, but now I'm finally a joke for the right reasons. You know, and that's all I have.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just a quick reminder that trick or treat is on the 30th from 2 to 4.
What are you giving out at your house?
Amazon hasn't delivered it yet. I don't
Okay,
know.
I like Reese cups if anybody needs them.
4 to 6. Just kidding. I'm a liar. My bad.
Okay. Okay.
Use something.
Do we have a motion to recess into executive session for personal matter in reference to the law director possible discipline?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, if Mrs. King wants to call for the roll.
Yes.
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 Okay, we recess into executive, and hopefully we can take a 5-minute break to hit the John or whatever.
Yes.